What does it mean to be second? Good morning, All Souls Community Church. Tuesday morning, June the 1st, Pastor Will here. We're just coming out of a long Memorial Day weekend where we've spent the entire weekend enjoying some hopefully friend time, some downtime, not necessarily the greatest weather, but the reality is we had a long weekend to actually enjoy freedoms that were purchased for us by the blood of those that we call heroes in our country, those who went before us and who paid the ultimate sacrifice for the freedoms that we have. That is an incredibly powerful picture of what we talked about on Sunday when we said that the nature of being Christian is by definition to be second. That when I'm first, what I do is I sacrifice you on the altar of me. But when I'm second, I sacrifice me on the altar of you. In other words, I put down my rights, I put down my time, my money, my energy, and even my life for your sake. And it's what we read about in 1 John 3 when it says, this is how we even know what love is. It's the very definition of love, that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay our lives down for one another. It's the ultimate and fundamental call of what it means to be Christian. And we parsed out some of the ways that is such a struggle for us, because when it's a struggle because we think it doesn't work. We think it costs too much. We think there's too much of a risk involved. And one of the things that I wanted to bring out on Sunday, but you just run out of time, right, is there's an actual, I don't know if it's a YouTube channel or a website, but you can find them all over YouTube. It's called I Am Second. It's these short films that talk about this reality of what it means to be second, to trust that there's a God who is first, and that the God who is first is at work on my behalf, even when I can't see it, even when it feels like the injustice is going to be overwhelming. And one of the ways that we brought out this idea, this topic on Sunday was under the umbrella and the issue of racism. There's a great I Am Second that's all about a corrupt cop and an unjust conviction. There's a cop who basically, in trying to build his career, starts to make some decisions that are all about himself. He starts to write false reports and to plant false evidence and to steal and rob both the city and drug lords and whatnot. And one of the people that he hurts is this black man who is wrongfully convicted. He's wrongfully, first of all, charged and arrested and then convicted, all based off the lies, the false reports of this police officer. And I won't get into necessarily all the details of it because I'm going to link it here so that you can watch it for yourself. It's worth the time. But I'm sharing it here because I think it's another strong piece of evidence of what we were talking about on Sunday, which is that the power of love is actually what conquers hate. That hate is me putting me first and therefore sacrificing you. And when I do that, I think it's going to protect me. I think it's going to work out for me. But what it always does, it's a trap. It's a trap for me, and it's a trap that I fall into, and I end up hurting myself and everyone else around me. And that's what happened with this police officer who ended up losing his job and even going to prison for the things that he did that always started with these small decisions. It never starts with the big ones. It's the small decisions that direct your heart in a particular direction, and you start walking. And in his own words, he said, I started doing things that I never thought I would be willing or able to do. He didn't even recognize who he was. Well, this black man who was wrongfully convicted and then sentenced to prison for 10 years. He said he made a commitment to himself that when he got out, he was going to find that cop and hurt him. But you know who found that man in prison? Was Jesus. When he opened up his Bible and Jesus started to talk to him about forgiveness and the power of forgiveness and the necessity of forgiveness for his sake. And here's what he said he heard God say to him. It's not your fight. Give me the fight and give me your bitterness and your anger and watch what I will do. And so that's what he did. He gave over the bitterness. He gave over the struggle. He gave over the fight to the Lord. And behind the scenes, without this guy ever knowing what was going on, what God was doing in the life of this police officer, was meeting him. in his despair, as his life crumbled and he started to confess to a local pastor what he had done, and the pastor introduced him to Jesus, and Jesus changed this cop's life. So much so that the cop went back to the FBI, confessed his sins. That's how he ends up going to prison, right? Confesses his sins and actually starts to work with the FBI to right his wrongs, one of which was this wrongful conviction. And so behind the scenes, God is already fighting the fight for the man who was who experienced injustice, was unjustly convicted and sentenced to prison. God's fighting that fight for him in a way he could have never known or anticipated, but God was faithful. And the way this story ends is that God orchestrates two different meetings between this man who was convicted and this cop who then went to prison, this ex-cop now, for them to actually meet and reconcile and become friends. And now they've written a book called Conviction, and they go around giving these talks about this reality, that true love, this man who was wrongfully convicted, his willingness to sacrifice his right to be angry, to sacrifice even 3 years, because that's how long he ended up being in prison, 3 years of his life on the altar of loving this man, this cop who had hurt him, this man who desperately needed his forgiveness, willingly giving that forgiveness. And from there, thousands of lives. And how do you keep track of how many lives have been touched? Through a book, through a video now with I Am Second, and now even through this video as it's touching your life. Do you see the point here? When we choose to put me first, if I don't look out for me, who's gonna, right? How many times have you heard that? When we choose to put me first, when I am first, everyone loses, including me. But when I am second and God is first, when I walk the path of Jesus, then all of a sudden, everyone wins. Everyone wins. Even my enemies are blessed because of the love that conquers hatred, the love that can even undo murder. Friends, this is what we celebrate every Sunday. Every Sunday, in that sense, is Memorial Day. In fact, God wants every day of our lives to be Memorial Day, where we look back to what Jesus has done for us in laying down his life, and we say, I'm going to live like Jesus. I'm going to make little decisions every day to walk in his direction, so that suddenly I start to realize I'm doing things, I'm able to do things I never thought I'd be able to do. Not in the horrible direction, but in the amazing, miraculous direction. Loving enemies, forgiving those that we've held on to bitterness towards, who've hurt us, who don't deserve our forgiveness, but who absolutely need it. And friends, we need to give it, not just for their sake, but for our sake. If that man had held on to that bitterness, it would have rotted him from the inside out, but instead he's let it go, and what he's received is love and healing and a story to tell that's literally changing the world. So here's the challenge for us today. Who are the people, what are the places, the things, the moments in your life where you have said this, no, I've got to protect myself. I've got to look out for me. I've got to be number one here. I've got to be the one in control, looking out for that comfort or protection. Why? Because I've been hurt, because this person has done something that is an injustice towards me, because I have a right to feel this way. What are those moments? Where are you holding on to that bitterness and saying, I am first? Today, friends, Jesus invites each and every one of us to enter in and to say, no, Jesus, you're first, I am second. And even though it kill me on the inside, I am going to be willing, I choose today to hand over my fight to you and to trust that you're on the move behind the scenes in ways I cannot see, working on my behalf, and yes, even on the behalf of those who hurt me, so that all of us might taste and see just how sweet and powerful love actually is. True love that sacrifices me on the altar of helping you, is what you did for me, Jesus. And if you've loved me that way, surely I can turn around and love others through that same love that now flows in my veins. Would you help us to that end today, Jesus? And friends, would you be willing to follow as he leads? As we do that, watch out, for you're going to change and the world around you is going to change. This Memorial Day week, as we come out of the weekend, Let's see how God changes our world as we choose to follow Jesus today. Will you? I pray that you will. Have a great day.